Drake Maye and Michael Penix are the two quarterbacks you must roster on your dynasty leagues. We'll tell you why next.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. You can also check me out over on the Locked On Cowboys podcast. And joining me today, as always, is Michael Fabiano. You can follow him on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. You can also check him out over on SI. On today's show, we're going to talk about our FOMO players. If you're not familiar with FOMO, fear of missing out, the players that we absolutely want to be on our dynasty rosters this year. Fabs, let's start at quarterback. Who is the one quarterback you have to have?
I love me some Drake Maye, buddy. I am very high on him. First off, you know how I love my trends. Typically, you will see at least one second-year quarterback have a breakout year. I think since 2015, it's only not happened twice. And last year was one of those years because what Bryce Young did was not break out. But I look at what Maye did last year as a rookie, right? 17 plus fantasy points 6 times in 12 starts. And the bigger thing for me, Marcus, is the rushing. He averaged 41 rushing yards in the 10 games where he played at least 43 snaps. If you project that over 17 games, that's almost 700 rushing yards. That's huge. And here's why. Since 2000, a quarterback has rushed for at least 650 yards. And I went through and did the research on a minimum of 12 starts. Happened 24 times. In 22 of those instances, the quarterback averaged at least 17.7 points per game. Now, by comparison, Patrick Mahomes last year averaged 17.7 points per game. So if you look at the 16 instances where a quarterback has averaged over 20 points per game when they've rushed for over 650 plus yards, including 5 with over 23 points per game on average, then you can tell why I'm so high on Drake Maye. I don't think this guy is going to come out and beat Tom Brady as a passer. I just don't see that. I know the Patriots added some weapons on the offensive line, on the offensive side. I see him being potentially Daniel Jones from a couple of years ago, where Daniel Jones was a top 10 quarterback, in part because of his passing, but more because of his skills as a rusher. So I'm pretty high on Drake Maye.
So yes, I'm high on Drake Maye as well. I think from a real life football, I think he's going to be closer to Justin Herbert as a player than like Daniel Jones. At least that's what we're hoping for, right? And we saw Justin Herbert have a monster rookie season, but also a really good second season. Now, I don't know if he has the weapons that Justin Herbert had earlier in his career when he had Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. And we'll talk about the Patriots wide receivers in an upcoming show. Don't you guys worry. But I just think he's good. Like, I think he's a legitimately good player. And I think last year there was some concerns about who was running the offense. Josh McDaniels is not a good head coach. Full stop. But I do think he's a pretty good offensive coordinator. We've seen him have somebody lead the NFL in rushing yards, Josh Jacobs, when he was with the Raiders. We've seen, obviously, Tom Brady have some of his best seasons with Josh McDaniels. And now that he's back as the OC in New England, you could do a lot worse than Josh McDaniels calling and designing an offense and calling the plays.
Yeah, no question about that. And once again, when you look at Maye's skill set, he doesn't need to necessarily be a high-end passer, but if he can run with that ball, and we know he can, that was one of the things I liked about him coming out of North Carolina with an improved offensive coordinator situation, as you mentioned. I think the sky is the limit. Now, is he going to be elite in fantasy? No. I mean, he's not going to be an elite quarterback, but could he finish in the top 10 or top 12? Absolutely, and I kind of expect it.
So I'm with you on the second-year quarterback. Like, I think that's where you need to target these guys because that's probably where you're going to get the most value. And that's why Fabs, I'm all in on Michael Penix this year, who was QB 21 in Dynasty leagues. Um, I'm a big fan. Like, I think he's a really good player, right? The other thing with Penix, if you look at the last 2 games of the year, okay, Carolina and Washington, he started 3 games, but that Giants game, it was really, really rough weather, right? Those 2 games, 38 passing attempts, 35 passing attempts. Like, he's going to throw the ball a lot because I think Atlanta's defense stinks. Like, I think it's going to be really bad. And I think Atlanta's just going to get into a bunch of these shootout games where I don't know if he's going to average 36.5 passing attempts a game, but could he average 33, 34? He's not going to give you a lot of value as a runner. So you need him to get a lot of passing attempts. I think he's going to get it with the Falcons.
And the weapons that he has. I mean, Drake London, Darnell Mooney, who was, under the radar, pretty good for a part of last season from a fantasy standpoint. Obviously, the backfield, we won't mention Kyle Pitts, but he's still there as well. He's in a great spot. And you make a great point in terms of Atlanta's defense, and they spent a lot of their offseason trying to improve that defense, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be very good. I expect there's going to be a lot of high-scoring games there for Penix. So, great point. And Maye, Penix, and Caleb Williams, those are the 3 second-year quarterbacks that people are going to want to target in Dynasty and redrafts.
I'm not saying that Michael Penix is better than CJ Stroud because he's not. Stroud's just a better overall player, and I expect him to be a better overall player. But neither quarterback gives you really anything on the ground. I like Atlanta's offensive line a lot better. I think I like the skill positions better. I think Drake London and Nico Collins are basically a wash, right? And I think Darnell Mooney is better than anything else Houston has right now. The biggest difference for me is that Houston's defense is incredible. Like, it has a chance to be the best defense in the league, where the Falcons might have the worst defense, right? So you're looking at 2 non-mobile quarterbacks. Penix is going to have to throw the ball a lot. They both play indoors. CJ Stroud, quarterback 13, Michael Penix, QB 21. I don't see why there should be that big of a gap here, Fabs.
I would agree with you. And it's funny, too, because last year we were all wondering what the hell Atlanta was doing drafting Michael Penix Jr. as high as they did after they gave Kirk Cousins a boatload of dead presidents. I guess that move was maybe not as bad as we all thought, at least on the surface, because now Penix has got a lot of potential both in real and fantasy football.
Well, and he gives you hope, right? Like, imagine if you're a Falcons fan right now and they didn't draft Michael Penix, you draft Dallas Turner at 8 or whoever, and you're going into the year with a washed up Kirk Cousins. You feel like, hey, we're wasting Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and this young offensive line. Now you have hope. So Penix is the one guy that I want. I want him as my QB2 because I just won't be surprised, Fabs, if he's averaging 275 yards a game and maybe 2 touchdowns. I just think that offense has that type of potential. All right, let's talk about some running backs that we think are undervalued right now in Dynasty leagues. We'll talk about Omarion Hampton and James Cook next. This episode is brought to you by Skylight Calendars. Say goodbye to sticky notes, scribbled plans on the fridge, and overlapping calendar invites. The Skylight Calendar is here to bring clarity to the chaos and help families stay organized without the stress. This sleek digital display syncs with your existing calendars, Google, Apple, Outlook, and more, making it simple to track appointments, practices, dinners, and reminders in all one easy-to-see place. My family has been using a Skylight calendar for a couple months now, and I can't tell you how amazing it is. We've got incredibly busy lives with T-ball games and dance recitals, and it's just wild. But Skylight Calendar helps us keep our life in order. Right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/NFL. Go to skylightcal.com/NFL for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That is skylightcal.com/NFL. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We're talking about our FOMO players, the guys that we are so afraid of breaking out that we've got to have them on our dynasty rosters. We mentioned Drake Maye. We mentioned Michael Penix. Let's get to some running backs. Who's that one running back that you're going to have on every single dynasty team?
Oh man, I want the big O. I want Omarion Hampton. And I get it. He's probably not under the radar, but Saquon Barkley's getting drafted ahead of him in terms of ADP, and so is Breece Hall. And I could make an argument that he should also go ahead of Devon Achane. So let's get a little background here for the folks out there. Obviously, spent 3 years over at North Carolina, had a huge year in 2023, and then this past season, 1,660 yards, 15 touchdowns. The rushing yardage was good for second among FBS running backs behind only who? Ashton Jeanty. Hampton graded out really well by PFF as well. He was tied for fifth as a running back. His size helped him finish second in yards after contact. He was fifth in missed tackles forced after a rush. I mean, this guy is a monster, and he's a really good fit for Greg Roman's offense. He's also a pretty good pass catcher, and he's also was graded in the top 20 among FBS running backs in terms of pass blocking grades. So he's got it all. And when you land in a situation, and I understand that Najee Harris is there, but we're talking long-term, we're talking dynasty. I would not be surprised if Hampton is starting in week 1 and Hampton ultimately usurps Najee Harris and makes him more of a secondary player in that backfield. When you look at Greg Roman's history as an offensive coordinator in the NFL, Frank Gore has had a top 10 season under Greg Roman. LaShawn McCoy was the RB4 in a Greg Roman offense. Mark Ingram was an RB11 in a Greg Roman offense. When he has had a big time player in the backfield, typically that player has done very well. And even last year with J.K. Dobbins, who Marcus is not going to be buying any Christmas cards for anytime soon, he still averaged almost 15 points per game and was the RB24 despite missing 4 games. So that offense is very conducive to running backs putting up big points. And I absolutely think Hampton landed. He could not have landed in a better spot. Sans Najee Harris being there for 1 year.
Who cares?
I want Hampton on all of my rosters.
So this is where it's important to make sure that you're open to being wrong. So I wasn't.
I'm wrong plenty of times. That's never been a problem.
so okay. Let me explain my reasoning here. So I wasn't the biggest Omarion Hampton fan coming out of North Carolina. I thought the gap between Hampton and Jeanty as players was noticeable, and that's why when people were mocking Hampton to the Cowboys, check out the Locked On Cowboys podcast at 12. I just didn't see it because that's not a running back that you draft at number 12, right? I thought he's more of a downhill running back who is not the most elusive, but he can handle a big workload, right? In Dallas, I just didn't love the fit, but I do love it with the Chargers. And I think he's a perfect fit, as you mentioned, in a Greg Roman, Jim Harbaugh offense where they've got a really strong offensive line. They've got a quarterback that wants to throw the ball down the field. He's going to see a bunch of light boxes. And I don't care about Najee Harris on a 1-year deal at all because it's going to take all of 2 seconds for Harbaugh and Greg Roman to look at these running backs and be like, oh, that one's better. Let's just play the better running back, right? I'm with you. Like on Omarion Hampton, he's RB7 right now. If I had Devon Achane, I would offer him up for Omarion Hampton in a heartbeat. If I had Breece Hall, which I have had him in leagues, and I could get Omarion Hampton, I would do that in a heartbeat. So I think like RB5 in dynasty leagues is the floor for me right now. I'm all in.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. A huge fan, even in redrafts too. You could get Omarion Hampton at a pretty reasonable round right now because people are still concerned about Najee Harris. If you're looking at some of the early ADP data, give me all the Omarion Hampton I could get. I remember initially when the call was made that he got picked by the Chargers, and I'm like, son of a biscuit. It was more like I was bummed because I thought Najee Harris was also a really good fit for that offense, and he is. But now that basically goes by the wayside because you don't draft a guy in the first round and put him in a 50-50 split.
Yeah, no, I agree. The running back that I want in every single league, including all of my dynasty leagues, is James Cook, who I cannot believe his ADP right now, RB18. You're talking about somebody who is coming off a second 1,200-yard season. Now, the touchdowns went way up, but my thought process here is pretty simple. Number one, I think James Cook is just good at football. And I think that's a lot of times it's oversimplifying it. but a lot of times that just matters. Like I think he's a good football player. I think he's on a really good offense. He showed up for minicamp this week, which I think is a great sign for his long-term outlook. I think Buffalo is going to pay him, and I think they're going to make sure that he's not missing games, not missing practices. The other part of this is he's just a very fresh runner. He did not get a lot of touches at Georgia. So there's not a lot of wear and tear on his body. He has basically the same amount of career touches over his college career and NFL career as Ashton Genty has had over the last 2 years at Boise State. So I'm not worried about the age stuff. He's a fantastic receiver out of the backfield. Yeah, the touchdowns might go from 18 to 9 or 10. But who cares? If I'm getting him at RB 18, I don't need him to score 18 touchdowns, Fabs. I just need him to be a 1,200-yard back who has potentially 8 to 10 touchdowns on the resume. He's an easy buy for me.
Yeah, I agree with you too, and especially in an offense where Josh Allen's not going anywhere for a very long time.
Yep.
Allen will be along longer than James Cook will be in Buffalo. Let's just put it that way. And I do agree with you. And I've done research on running backs who've had 18 plus touchdowns, 20 plus touchdowns, because we saw Jahmyr Gibbs hit 20 last season, and regression is coming. I mean, listen, but at the end of the day, you've got to know that that's baked into the projection for that player, in this case, James Cook. So like you said, if he gets 10 touchdowns, 12 touchdowns, is that 6 to 8 fewer than he had last year? Yeah. Is it
let's say it's
pretty
10.
damn good? Yes.
Let's say he scores 10, or let's go 9, make it easy. That'd be half the number of touchdowns he had last year. I'm just telling you right now, if he's 1,300 yards, which is basically what he's averaged over the last 2 years, 1,300 yards and 9 touchdowns, he's going to outperform that RB 18 ADP. And that's assuming a massive regression comes. What if it's only what if he's 95% of what he was last year, or 90%? You're talking about a top 5, top 6, fantasy running back. I just think he's a good player and a really good offense, and nobody else in that roster, like Ray Davis, does not scare me. I want James Cook on all of my teams.
And if you're not afraid of that regression, which again, we both agree is going to come, he is still going to be a very productive player. He's still a very young player and a fresh player, as Marcus said. The one concern right now is, does he get into camp? Are there any contract holdouts possible? We've seen when players hold out in the past, it typically doesn't go well for them in the regular season. Some guys get hurt. Some guys don't perform as much as they had in previous seasons. But I mean, right now it's still June. We got plenty of time to get him under contract and get this thing settled.
And I actually thought what he said during the mini camp was really important. He said, I like my money. And it's interesting because if you're comparing him to some of these other running backs who have held out before, he's a second-round pick. A second-round pick has not made a lot of money in the NFL yet. I don't think he can afford to lose $100,000 in minicamp fines and $1 million in training camp fines. He just hasn't been that type of running back yet. Whereas like a Saquon Barkley, who's the number 2 overall pick, gets $40 million guaranteed on his first contract. That's not been the case for Cook. So I don't expect him to hold out. I do expect him to get a deal. And I feel like as soon as Adam Schefter tweets out that deal, that ADP is going to go way up.
And you're probably going to throw a little bit of a party there when that tweet goes out.
Yeah, of course I will. All right, let's talk about some receivers that we want on our fantasy teams this year, including a couple of young guys in very good offenses. At least we think will be good offenses. We'll get to Odunze and Rashee Rice next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there has never been a better time to get in on the action. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. I'm still backing the Oklahoma City Thunder to win the NBA championship. I know they're down 2-1 right now, but I actually think now is the time to get in. This is when the series odds have shifted a little bit. This is the cheapest you're going to get the Thunder to win the championship all year. So go check out those odds and lines over on FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. And if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For the second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting Show. As training camps get closer and moves are being made, hosts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. All right, Fabs, let's talk about some receivers that we want on our team. Who do you got?
They say that Rome wasn't built in a day. Well, Rome Odunze wasn't built in a season, but that breakout is coming. He showed flashes of potential last year as a rookie. Remember, he had 20 plus points in 2 games, and he was the 3rd wide receiver in the pecking order in Chicago behind DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. Well, Keenan Allen is still a free agent. He's not coming back, and that means that 8.1 targets per game are available. Odunze averaged right around 6 targets per game. I would be shocked, Mark, if that number does not get up into the 8-9 per game range, because he's going to end up. I wouldn't be surprised if he was the best Chicago wide receiver from a fantasy perspective, even better than DJ Moore. That would not shock me in year 2. Also, keep in mind, the Bears have done everything they possibly can to help Caleb Williams. They got rid of the crap Shane Waldron awful offense they had last season. They bring in one of the most brilliant young offensive minds to be their head coach in Ben Johnson. They improved the offensive line. Now, we were saying stuff about Caleb Williams last year as a rookie. Oh, he's got no excuses not to produce big numbers. Well, he kind of did, because the offensive coordinator in that situation was a disaster. It's not anymore. Ben Johnson, look what that offense did in Detroit when he was the OC. That thing was clicking on all cylinders, okay? And I think that the Bears have a possibility of being one of the better offenses in this league. Once again, you add offensive line help, you protect your quarterback, you allow him time to go through his progressions. And Rome Odunze came out of college, out of Washington, as one of the most highly touted players at that position. He just ended up in a situation kind of like Jackson Smith and Jigba did as a rookie. You come in, you got DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett ahead of you. You're not going to make a huge impact. Same thing with Odunze last season, but now Allen's gone. And that opens up, as I said, 8 targets per game. Rome Odunze is a guy that I want in Dynasty. I want him in redrafts. I think he's going to have a very good season. I could see Marcus 80 catches, 1,100 yards, and 8 touchdowns from this kid.
I'm shocked that Rome Odunze and DJ Moore have basically the exact same ADPs over on Dynasty League Football. Because no, it doesn't, because everything coming out about DJ Moore this offseason has not been great. Like, the body language has been poor, and Ben Johnson's talked about that. And DJ Moore said he's not quite sure what his role is going to be in the offense, and that he expects his numbers to drop. Like, it's pretty clear that DJ Moore is not thrilled with all the additions that they've made and maybe his fit in this offense. Whereas everything about Rome has been great. I think he's going to be the outside guy that's getting the downfield targets. He was an awesome player coming out of Washington. He does everything so well. And you don't even have to pay top 20 prices for him at wide receiver right now. 100% agree. This is an offense that we think is going to go from the Stone Ages with Shane Waldron to maybe one of the best offenses in the league with Ben Johnson. Couldn't be more all in. I wanted to ask you about my guy, Rashee Rice, and who you'd rather have between these guys. But let me make the case for Rashee Rice. He was fantastic in the second half of his rookie year. I mean, he became the de facto number 1 receiver. He was great in the playoffs. The first 3 games of this year, I mean, he was on a ridiculous pace. And they played some really good defenses in that stretch for the Chiefs. I saw some numbers for Matt Harmon where if you take his second half of the 2023 season in the first couple of games of 2024, and you look at like his success rate versus man, which was 98th percentile, and success rate versus zone, which was 99th percentile, like he was tracking to be one of these guys that was like 1,400 yards and double-digit touchdowns. And now, because of the injury and because they drafted Xavier Worthy, you can get him at wide receiver 19 over on Dynasty League Football. And if he's healthy, we're going to project him as a top 10 receiver every week. So I'm buying.
And I I'm right on board with you. And I get it. Worthy was very good down the stretch and into the playoffs last season, but Rashee Rice, he's alpha. He's got that alpha quality.
Yeah.
I don't think Xavier Worthy is an alpha player. Travis Kelce is clearly a declining player in this offense. And you've also got Jalen Royals, who they drafted, but who knows what kind of impact he's going to be making in year one. I really like Rashee Rice as a player. And
Yes.
statistically, he showed what he can be at the end of his rookie campaign, the beginning of last season. The only questions are, how does the recovery from the knee injury go, and what's going on off the field?
Yep.
And I do wonder, Marcus, if all things were equal and he was healthy and there was not that incident off the field, if he weren't a top 10 dynasty pick among wide receivers. Those are the question marks.
We were already trending there. If you look at like September ADP from last year, like we were already getting close. And as I think about this Chiefs offense, like moving forward, not just in 2025, but like 2026 and beyond, I wouldn't be surprised if Rashee Rice, basically his role is the same as what Travis Kelce's role was, where he's the guy in the middle of the field that when it's 3rd and 6, he's going to get the ball because he's just the best route runner of the group. He's the best guy at making plays after the catch. And he and Patrick Mahomes just have such a good feel of where to settle down into the zones, how to get open, how to quickly get off the line of scrimmage and get to a spot. I just think that's going to be the guy that Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes feature, not only this year, but going on and moving forward.
I think as the months go by and we get closer to camp and we hear more positive reports about him, that ADP is going to start inching upward.
I agree. Real quick before we go, who would you rather have in dynasty leagues, Rome or Rashee Rice?
Rice.
Okay, I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Check out the show on YouTube. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow Fabs on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. I'm at Marcus_Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.